Marley and the White Lady moved towards the set, the curtain began to rise, sending shafts of limelight creeping across the map like the dawning sun. The buildings seemed to both come closer to Marley and yet also stretch out impossibly into the distance. He was also aware that the jogging caused by the White Lady walking had gone. They were still moving in towards the model of Scrooge's house, slowly at first, but with gathering pace. Closer and closer they came, the streets and houses rushing at a great rate of knots. It came to Marley all at once that this was because they were now high above the streets of London and falling towards their destination through the thin, cold December air. Marley began to scream. "Hush now," said the White Lady. "We don't want to lose the element of surprise." With great effort, Marley stifled himself. As they fell, they narrowly missed the tower of the church of St. Mary le Bow. As they passed, it began striking 12. But that could not be the clock. Marley was sure that he had visited his partner upon midnight quite some time ago. So how could it be that 12 was only now being struck? It was clear that there was something most terribly awry, for once it had chimed the hour, it wanted to chime the quarter almost immediately, and then the half, and then the quarter again. Ding dong, 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 ding dong. A madness of sound crashing all around him as time spun out of control. Then Marley remembered that St. Mary's, the church of the livery and finance companies, never had a clock tower, let alone one that chimed the hours and quarters and minutes. Oh, on a second glance, he could still half see the building as a card model on the stage, and behind it, in an outline made up of the edges of clouds and the lines of rooftops, there was a giant hand, ink-stained and peat-smelling, reaching down from the sky to a winding key on the far side of the church, which was gently turning backwards. He had no chance to ruminate further on the meaning of this, as all at once he was up upon the window to Scrooge's bedchamber, and once upon it, they were through it and into the room. As they entered, the light from Marley's candle doubled, tripled, and doubled again. Yet this light, even as bright as it was, did not hurt the eyes, but bathed the entire room in a baleful, cold light. Marley looked up to see the face of the White Lady above him. She had transfigured herself. Her face was all at once her own face and that of a child and a very old man, all viewed at once. The flame of the candle reflected from her, and also it was her. It played in her hair. It formed flowers of light at her waist. She smiled down at Marley as she floated over to the bed at the opposite side of the room. Scrooge had drawn all the curtains around his bed. Not planning on standing on ceremony, the White Lady pulled aside one to find Scrooge there, a picked carcass under time-worn sheets. He sprang back like a startled cat and hissed in similar fashion as well. "I am the ghost of Christmases past," said the White Lady, her voice low and modulated, as if heard from a great distance. A receptacle, whose normal place was under the bed, thankfully with only a little water in it, flew past the left ear of the White Lady and shattered into crazed pieces on the wall behind. "Oh, quite a temper on him," she remarked quietly, no doubt for Marley's ears only. As it was, she could have made the remark right out in the open for all the attention that Scrooge was giving her. Presently, he was making much of a shout of "Fire! Fire!" and looking to lay hands on anything that might put out a conflagration. "Would you put out the flame that guides you to your past?" said the White Lady. "Would you douse enlightenment, man?" What business have you with me?" shouted Scrooge. "Your welfare," the White Lady replied. "My welfare would be better served by getting a good night's sleep." Scrooge was in full flight now. Marley had seen these rages before and knew that once given full head of steam, they could spit and boil like a griddle filled with old fat and poor sausages. I did not ask to engage a supernatural agent this night, said Scrooge, let alone 4 of you. And all for what? The saving of my soul? Well, I only have it from that vacuous shade that clanked and groaned an hour ago, who, I may add, was laughable in his endeavours to scare me. I mean, chains, groans, that ridiculous dumb show outside my window. Humbug, I tell you, humbug. Yeah. And he looked nothing like Marley. Yes, I only have it from him that my soul is in any way in peril. And having thought upon it, I've come to the conclusion that even if I am in some little debt to the Almighty in his ledger, then such a debt, and therefore the fate of my immortal soul, is mine alone. I shall be the master of its repayment. Be off, I tell you, be off! At that moment, Scrooge began wafting with the bedsheet at Marley and his companion, in the same manner as one would shoo a harvestman or moth that was disturbing one's sleep. Well, your reclamation, then, said the White Lady. But Scrooge was not listening in the slightest. His actions of waving and shaking the sheet were becoming enough to billow her backwards. The arrogance of the man, the blind, haughty arrogance of him. Marley watched him now, giggling and frothing in his own cleverness. Oh, take heed, Marley bellowed. He didn't mean to speak, but his frustration spilled over. His words tumbled out of him and across the flame of the candle that he was holding in his hands. The flame leaped and roared. It engulfed the White Lady's face and blew her hair out in all directions. The flame didn't burn her, but it pumped light into every part of her and gave her the sudden appearance of an avenging angel forged in the fire of righteousness. Scrooge cowered back, taking the bedsheet and flinging it over his head in terror. The White Lady looked down at Marley as the flames died down. It seemed to him there was admiration in the look, but he couldn't be sure. Then she turned her gaze to the quivering lump of sweat-stained cotton that went by the name of Ebenezer Scrooge. "Take my hand and walk with me," she said. Scrooge, slowly, like some great mollusk levering itself out of its shell, emerged from under the cover, gingerly, and took the proffered hand. Kindly, the White Lady steadied the old codger as he stepped out of his bed and into the waiting slippers by its side. Perhaps Scrooge thought to protest that the weather and the hour were not adapted to pedestrian purposes, that his bed was warm and the thermometer a long way below freezing, that he was clad but lightly. If indeed he thought any of these things, he gave no indication. But upon finding that the spirit made towards the window, he clasped his robe in panic. "I'm not jumping from there," he said. You'll have me fall and break my bones on the cobbles. I know what you're about." The White Lady sighed. No doubt she was used to a class of far more compliant customers than this. "Keep hold of my hand, and you'll be upheld in more than this." And as she said so, she rose into the air and out through the wall and into the night with a reluctant Scrooge in tow. Up they flew, the ground tumbling away, and Marley whooped into light as London receded. He was dimly aware that Scrooge was gibbering and screaming, but paid him no mind. This was fascinating to him. In all his time as a ghost, he'd never flown. He'd not known it was possible, tethered as he was by the chains. So now, to be soaring and tumbling with the eddies and currents of the air was liberation indeed. They passed through smoke columns, rising up through the frozen air, each of them bringing a little of the cheer and conviviality from the fires from which they'd emanated. Marley could divine the underlying spice of each one. Mince pie here, cigar there, plum pudding hither, brandy thither. Up into the clouds they passed, each heady experience drifting up into the heavens until they became tangible lines and curls which combined into the words, "The Past," picked up in mile-high Gothic script like some grand title card at the chairman's side at a celestial music hall. Marley laughed as they flew through the letters, the light changing into that of days long gone by, as he imagined what follies may await both him and Scrooge there.